Hello, this is Christina Akrazoglu here to talk a bit about a module I've put together and to answer a couple of prompts. I think to cold open here, I'm actually going to start with the second prompt that was posed, and that was how the module fits with the overall structure of the course. And I feel that in order to accurately answer this question, a little bit of context of what the actual module is and the overall course structure can really be helpful. So to show you this, here is a little snippet of the course structure. This is coming from what's called a deconstruction document. It's very similar to what a typical design document would be, in that it outlines all of the different assessments and activities and big ideas that go into a course. So the things that I want to highlight for you guys is this. Number one, this course is actually a graphic design class. It's called Digital Publishing 2. So this course is very heavy on application. It is very heavy on making sure students are taking their prior knowledge from other fundamental courses and then using technology like InDesign in order to build something new. Why is that important? Well, you'll see that for every unit, which is highlighted in red, there are blue sentences here. These blue sentences are what are the assessments. So these are the things that are going to be graded in the class. And for every single one of those graded assignments, there is going to be a couple of green activities or big ideas that students will have to learn in order to be successful at that blue assessment. So you'll see that the assessments for this particular class are very much application-based. Like I had said before, this class is about developing. This class is about designing. It's about producing. And so you'll see for every single one of these assignments, it was intentionally designed so that students would have to create something, and that aligned really well with what the course was trying to accomplish. So the final thing I want to say that is helpful in knowing how the course structure relates to the overall module is to tell you what the actual module is going to be about. So in this example, I'm going to show you the module around Learning Objective 1.1.1, describe the purpose of a business card as it relates to print collateral. So now we're on to the first prompt, which was explain the choices that I've made when designing the module. So the first design decision that I'd like to highlight is how this connects to the actual course structure. So it relates back to prompt 2 still. If you recall, there was red text at the top of that deconstruction document which represented the unit. That I put as this drop down right here, and that contains all of the unit's information in one area for the student to find. Within the unit, if you recall, there were three graded assignments. Those are what are called competencies. So competency 1, I copied over competency 2. There was also competency 3. So for each of these graded assignments, there were a number of learning objectives. In this case, I'm showing you the module for Learning Objective 111. But there's a number of these learning objectives within each competency, within each unit, and it is that kind of organization throughout the entire course. So why is that important? Well, I think for 2 reasons. One, we did a bunch of hard work in the design phase. It was highly collaborative. A lot of people had input. And so it was really important for me that if someone inherited this class down the road, or if someone was reviewing this class down the road, they would be able to look at the deconstruction document and then look at what was in Canvas and see how things aligned. So that was part of it. The other part of it is just logistical. I mean, it's really difficult to organize stuff in a virtual environment. So making sure we have some rhyme and reason to how we're doing something, just that overall structure is helpful in terms of nomenclature, naming files, putting things places. So that's the first thing I would highlight. All right, so on to the next thing, which is page layout. So I am opening the first page in this module, which is introducing the learning objective. Starting at the very top, you'll see I have a little banner outlining what class it is that the student is in. I also like to have some sort of navigation bar at the top as well. Many learning management systems have this built in. In Canvas, you have to put a widget, so it works on some pages and not on others. But I like to keep this as consistent as possible and have it included just because I think it's helpful. It's helpful for students to know where they're at in the module. It's helpful with time management to say, hey, I have a lot of stuff yet to do. So I like having that kind of navigation to visualize where they are in their journey. Next up is just a title. So the thing that is going to be focused on the page. Then this block, it's probably my favorite block, which is the intro block. So this is the area where I work with the instructor to put together a little bit of introduction or a little bit of context for the page. This is the area where instructors get to be super creative. So as opposed to just slapping in a PDF or a lecture on a page and then pressing next, students can learn a little bit from the instructor, like, hey, Mrs. B thinks that this is the first piece of the puzzle that will help them make a really cool business card. Or, hey, maybe you need to keep these things in mind that I didn't have in the reading, but I think are super important. Or maybe even just a story that the instructor has. I think any type of personalization and intentionally putting interaction, even if it's asynchronous between student and instructor, is only going to make a course more robust. So it personalizes it. In the middle here, this is what I affectionately call the meat of the page. This is where the content goes. In this case, it is a checklist. This is where a lecture would go. This is where an activity or a reading would live, is right here in the middle. And then finally, I have a block that is just telling students, hey, these are the things you should have done. And I've added this block recently because a lot of student feedback was saying, I didn't realize that there is this hidden link on the page and didn't hit it. Or I did not know that I had to do this certain action. So by clearly outlining the expectations of the page at the bottom, students can just double check and make sure they got everything done. And that sort of leads me into why this is important. I feel like it's really important in terms of user experience or learner experience to have things that are repetitious, be as consistent and standardized as possible. So if you can keep a page standardized, if they're going to be seeing content over and over, put it in the same place. I think that it helps students with their expectations. It cuts down on navigation time. It cuts down on answering questions on the behalf of the instructor. So it's just a lot easier. The other thing I would say in terms of page layout design and keeping it simple is that it helps instructors. So I've worked with a lot of folks who are like, I really want to make a good course. I want to make it customized, but I feel super inundated on all the different options I can do. And one of the ways I'd like to alleviate that as an instructional designer is say, hey, I get it. If we can make this page simple, let's make the actual activity the place where we put our brain power. And so we stop thinking about the design of the page because that's pretty standard and start thinking about the actual learning experience. And I think that is just a lot easier and probably more beneficial for everyone. So the final thing I want to showcase is the general flow of the course. Something I work with the instructor or instructors a lot on is what should be shown and when. So I generally think Bloom's taxonomy is a good tool Start with those lower order thinking skills like a lecture or a reading, and then build your way up to something more complex. So to showcase that, let's go to the first page, and this is a reading. So pretty low order. Students are just reading it, the article. So you'll see this should look pretty similar. Navigation at the top, title, intro, the actual activity, and then are you finished block. Now this is unintentional. You'll see in the middle of the page here that the actual activity is not showing because I had updated my Chrome browser. But as an aside, something I always do, both for accessibility and just to make folks' lives easier, I always have an alternate way to view content. So in this case, there's a direct link. If you click it, you can go there if it isn't showing up for you. So that is one fail-safe I always include in my classes as well. But as we're continuing, so here I copied over the discussion. Still pretty low order. It's just thinking about the reading that students went over before. Then we move on to a lecture. So again, similar layout. Here's the activity. Students can download a direct MP4 if they so choose, and then a short little finish checklist at the bottom. And then the final thing here is a summary activity. So this is, let me go to the beginning here since I've already taken it. This is an activity I made in Rise 360, and I used a little bit of custom JavaScript. So this activity is just summarizing all of the stuff that they learned in the reading and the lecture with a little hotspot. And then the instructor really wanted to make sure that there was some sort of reflection. So what I've done, these are these are prior student work. So from this class, this is something that a student has created. And then look at this, give your feedback. These are just examples that I've put together. So those are things. And then here are some examples of some poor graphic design and business cards the instructor had found. And then at the end, the idea is students can print this information off if they so choose and use this as a guide for their own design of their business card. So students can say, oh, I really think that icons and colors and minimalism are important to me because I reflected on those. Maybe I should incorporate those elements in my eventual assignment. So that's a pretty high order thinking. Again, there's a PDF download and then a finished at the end. So just to wrap up, I think in terms of how it fits with the overall course, mapping and structure, it's important to keep it organized and keep it as succinct to what was done in the design phase. And then in terms of actually designing and developing in the learning management system, keep it simple, keep it well organized, and make sure there's always accommodation for students. I think those are the general rules I try to use whenever I'm designing.